Eleanor Winters always believed that life would follow the script she had written in her mind. Graduate college, land a marketing job in downtown Atlanta, marry her fiancé Matthew, and raise a beautiful family. At 23, she had it all, or so it seemed. With her tall, graceful figure, smooth, fair skin, piercing sapphire eyes, and thick golden hair cascading down her back, Eleanor could light up any room. Her makeup was always impeccable. Rosy pink lips, glowing cheeks, lashes thick with mascara, and her signature emerald green nails decorated with tiny crystals that sparkled under sunlight. People would often whisper, "She's like a living doll." But what no one saw was what brewed quietly beneath her flawless appearance. A ticking time bomb, a betrayal from within her own body. It started with fatigue. Then came irregular cycles, intense sugar cravings, and a sudden puffiness in her face and fingers. "You've gained 10 pounds in just 2 weeks, Elle," her mother whispered one evening, her voice coated with concern and judgment. "Are you pregnant?" Eleanor laughed nervously. "Of course not." 2 months before her wedding, after an emergency visit to the doctor due to severe pelvic pain, she received the diagnosis that shattered her world: polycystic ovary syndrome, PCOS. "It's a hormonal disorder," Dr. Patterson explained gently. "You may experience rapid weight gain, mood swings, even issues with fertility. We'll manage it, but you need to prepare for significant lifestyle changes." At first, Eleanor tried to stay strong. "I can fix this," she told herself in the mirror, applying her blush with shaky hands. "I'm still beautiful." But PCOS doesn't play fair. Despite her strict diet and constant workouts, the weight packed on like her body was betraying her. 20 pounds in 3 weeks, then 40 more. Her once slender figure now struggled beneath loose sweaters. Her thighs chafed, her ankles swelled, and her makeup, no matter how precise, couldn't mask the growing insecurity. By the time she reached 420 pounds, Eleanor barely recognized herself. The whispers turned to stares. Her mother avoided taking photos with her. Her father only spoke to her when necessary. Her younger sister Lily, once her best friend, now looked at her like a stranger. "You can't wear the dress like that," her mother snapped during a bridal fitting. "You look like a—" "Don't say it," Eleanor interrupted, tears forming. "Please." But the final blow came from Matthew. It was supposed to be a quiet dinner at the bistro where they had their first date. Eleanor had worn a black dress, her makeup flawless as always, her lips a defiant shade of red. "I'm sorry, Elle," he said, setting his napkin down and avoiding her eyes. "I can't go through with it." "What?" Her voice cracked. "You're calling off the wedding? I don't recognize you anymore. You've changed." "It's a medical condition. I didn't choose this," she cried. I need someone who takes care of themselves." She sat in silence as he walked away, leaving her alone at the candlelit table. She felt like the air had been knocked out of her chest. The next day, her parents confirmed what she feared. "You've embarrassed us," her father said coldly. "Do you understand how this looks to our family, to our friends?" "You let yourself go," her mother added. "We raised you better than this." That night, Eleanor packed a suitcase, filled it with essentials and makeup, and walked out without saying another word. She didn't know where she was going, just that she needed to get away from Atlanta, from the wedding invitations still stacked in her closet, from the mirrors and memories that mocked her every step. The bus rolled into Lake Charles, Louisiana 2 days later. A recent hurricane had left the town battered. Shingles were missing from rooftops. Trees lay split across driveways. Entire neighborhoods were without power or clean water. The chaos matched the storm inside Eleanor. At a local shelter, she saw a hand-lettered sign taped to a wall. "Volunteers needed. Help us rebuild." She stared at it, thinking, maybe if I help someone else, I can start helping myself. Despite her size, Despite the pain in her swollen knees, Eleanor signed up. The next morning she stood in worn jeans and a borrowed t-shirt, hammer in hand, ready to help rebuild a stranger's porch. That's when she saw him. He moved slowly, almost stiffly, across the muddy lawn. His right arm was wrapped in gauze. His jaw, neck, and left cheek bore a deep web of burn scars, but his eyes, dark brown, steady, met hers with curiosity, not judgment. "You new here?" he asked, his voice hoarse but kind. "Yeah, first day," Eleanor said, wiping sweat from her forehead. "I'm Eleanor," he nodded. "Samuel." There was no hesitation in his handshake, no flinch at her size, no glance down her body like everyone else, just an honest human connection. She watched as he lifted a broken window frame, revealing scars on both forearms. Her curiosity bubbled. "You're not with the fire department, are you?" He gave a soft chuckle. "Was. Firefighter for 11 years. Last year I pulled a kid out of a burning trailer. Explosion caught me." She blinked. "I'm so sorry." He shrugged, still breathing. And for the first time in months, Eleanor smiled. Not out of habit, not for appearance, but because she felt understood. That evening, after hours of hauling debris and handing out food, they sat on the porch of a half-gutted home, watching the sun sink behind the trees. "People look at me and see a monster," Samuel said, tracing the scar across his jaw. Eleanor looked down at her lap. "They look at me and don't see me at all." He turned to her. "Well, I see you." She met his eyes, and something flickered between them, two broken souls finding shelter in each other's storm. Over the next few weeks, Eleanor and Samuel became inseparable. Each morning they worked side by side, clearing branches, distributing bottled water, repairing fences. He showed her how to use a chainsaw safely, and she surprised him with how quickly she could learn. They laughed often, usually over things like how bad they both were at painting trim, or how Samuel's grumpy dog, Rusty, had taken a liking to Eleanor and followed her around like a bodyguard. But beneath the smiles and sweat, something deeper grew, something tender, something real. It started with little things. Samuel would bring Eleanor her favorite peach-flavored energy drink. Eleanor, in return, would make sure to save him a seat next to her at the shelter's lunch tent. He'd help carry her heavy load when her knees gave out, never making her feel ashamed. And she never asked about his scars. Instead, she spoke to the man underneath them. One night, after a long shift repairing a roof under the blistering Louisiana sun, they sat on a dock by the bayou, feet dangling over the dark water, cicadas buzzing like static in the background. "I used to look in the mirror and cry," Eleanor admitted quietly, staring at the ripples. "Not because of how I looked, but because I thought no one would ever look at me and see worth." Samuel turned his head, watching her profile in the golden moonlight. "When I woke up from the fire, I couldn't even recognize my own reflection. My first thought wasn't the pain, it was, who's going to love this?" She looked at him then, her eyes welling up. "I see you, Samuel." He reached out and took her hand gently in his scarred one. "I see you too, Eleanor." And in that moment, beneath the stars and the weight of their broken pasts, something unspoken passed between them. Not pity, not sympathy, but love. But love, they'd both learn, wasn't enough to shield them from the world's cruelty. A week later, a local news team showed up to the volunteer site, filming a segment about the hurricane recovery. A young reporter with a tight smile interviewed volunteers, including Eleanor and Samuel. The piece aired 2 nights later. The headline read, "Beauty and the Burned, Unlikely Love Blooms in the Rubble." They played a slow-motion clip of Eleanor laughing, her cheeks red and round, then cut to Samuel hammering nails, the camera lingering on the scars across his neck. Comments flooded the news station's social media. "She let herself go, huh? Is this real, or some kind of pity project?" That's one way to settle, I guess. What happened to standards these days? Eleanor read each comment like a slap to the face. She sat frozen on her cot that night at the shelter, phone in hand, tears pouring silently. Samuel entered and saw the screen. He didn't say a word, just turned it off and held her as she sobbed into his chest. I thought they'd understand, she whispered, that maybe someone would see what we are. They don't have to, he said. We know. That's enough. But it wasn't. The next morning, some of the volunteers began acting cold toward Eleanor. One woman who had shared snacks with her daily now moved her things to another table. A group of younger men snickered as Eleanor walked by, mimicking her heavy steps behind her back. One even whispered, not so quietly, "You think he's with her because he wants to be?" Samuel heard it. He turned around slowly, face like stone, and said, "Say that again. I dare you." The man backed off, muttering, but the damage was done. "I'm just making things worse," Eleanor told Samuel that night, sitting under the stars again, this time on the steps of an old church. "They're judging you because of me." "You think I give a damn what they say?" he replied, his voice edged with emotion. "They didn't see you hauling food through floodwater, or holding that kid while she screamed for her missing mom. You earned your place here." She looked away. "I don't want to be someone you have to defend." "You're not," he said firmly. "You're someone I choose, every day." But the self-doubt had already crept in. Later that week, Eleanor received a message on Facebook from her sister Lily. "Saw the news story. Mom and Dad are furious. They said you've lost your mind. You look different. Are you okay?" That word, different, cut deeper than any insult. She typed back, "I'm not okay, but I'm finally free," then deleted it. Instead, she shut her phone off. That night, Eleanor stood in the mirror of the shelter bathroom, staring at herself. Her face was rounder, her body heavier than it had ever been. The mascara she applied smudged at the corners, and her painted green nails were chipped from hard labor. She was not the woman Atlanta had adored, not the bride her mother had planned for, not the picture-perfect girl on Instagram, but she was strong. She was real, and maybe, just maybe, she was finally becoming the woman she was meant to be. 2 days later, during a supply delivery, a storm blew in suddenly. Winds howled through the torn branches, rain smashing down like bullets. Samuel and Eleanor were out checking on an elderly woman when the levee sirens began to blare. "Flash flood warning!" someone yelled. "Move out now!" They rushed toward the van, but a child's scream stopped them. "Help! My brother! He's stuck in the water!" Without hesitation, Samuel bolted toward the sound. "Samuel, wait!" Eleanor shouted, slipping in the mud as she followed him. In the chaos, she saw Samuel plunge into a ditch overflowing with muddy water. A young boy clung to a branch, eyes wide with terror. "Hold on, buddy," Samuel yelled. Eleanor grabbed a rope from the van and threw it. "Samuel, take it!" He caught it, wrapped it around the boy, and Eleanor and another volunteer pulled with all their strength. With a final heave, the boy collapsed into Eleanor's arms, sobbing. But when she looked back, Samuel was gone. "Samuel!" she screamed into the storm. Then, through the haze of rain, she saw his hand reaching up. She dove forward, grabbing it, refusing to let go. "I've got you!" she cried. And she did. They both collapsed onto the road, soaked, shaking, but alive. As volunteers surrounded them, Eleanor clutched Samuel's hand and whispered through tears, "You saved him." He looked up at her, water dripping down his scarred face. "You saved me." In the days following the rescue, Eleanor and Samuel became quiet heroes of Lake Charles. The local paper ran a photo of Eleanor, soaked to the bone, holding the boy tightly in her arms. Right next to her, Samuel knelt in the background, his scarred face turned up to the rain like a man reborn. The headline read, "Two Unlikely Angels. Volunteers brave storm to save child's life." But with attention came exposure. And exposure for Eleanor meant facing everything she had left behind. The article had gone viral. Friends from Atlanta shared it. Co-workers from her old job commented with shock. And then, her family saw it. 3 days later, while Eleanor was serving warm meals at the shelter kitchen, she heard a voice she hadn't heard in over 2 months. "Elle?" Her entire body stiffened. She turned slowly. Her mother, Eleanor Winters, stood in the entryway, perfectly dressed in a beige blazer, not a hair out of place. Behind her was Lily, looking uncomfortable in a sundress, her phone clutched in one hand like a shield. "Mom?" Eleanor whispered. All around, conversation stopped. People watched. Samuel, stacking supplies near the back, froze when he saw Eleanor's expression pale. I can't believe this is where you ended up," Allison said, looking around in disgust. "A disaster zone, covered in mud, living in some church basement?" "I'm not living in a basement," Eleanor said, placing the ladle down carefully. "I'm volunteering. I'm helping people." Allison's gaze swept over her. "You've gained even more weight." Eleanor flinched. "You left everything behind. Your job, your home, your wedding, and now this." Her mother gestured to the newspaper folded on the table nearby. "You've humiliated us again, Eleanor. This picture is everywhere." "It should be," a voice said behind her. Samuel stepped forward. Dirty boots, sweat-stained shirt, arms crossed over his chest. He looked like everything Eleanor's mother would disapprove of. But his eyes were calm, unafraid. "She saved that boy. You should be proud." Allison blinked, her mouth slightly open, as if she hadn't realized someone like him could speak so clearly, so confidently. "You must be the man from the article," she said. "The burn victim." Samuel didn't react. "I'm Samuel, her friend, her partner." Allison turned back to Eleanor. "This is who you chose? This scarred man?" Eleanor's throat tightened. "Yes," she said quietly. "I chose him." Lily stepped forward, hesitating. "Elle, I told them not to come like this. I just thought maybe we could talk. You haven't answered my messages." Eleanor looked at her sister. There was guilt in her eyes. Real emotion. "I didn't answer," Eleanor said, "because I didn't know if you saw me anymore. Or just a failure." "You're not a failure," Lily replied softly. "I was scared. I didn't understand what you were going through. I didn't fight for you like I should have." For the first time, Eleanor saw her sister clearly, not as a bystander, but as someone also trapped in their mother's shadow. "I miss you, Elle," Lily whispered. "Please come home." Samuel took a step back, giving them space, but Eleanor caught his hand. "I am home," she said, "right here, with people who don't care what size I wear or how clear my skin is. People who care that I show up, that I give, that I love." Allison scoffed. "You're throwing your life away for charity work and a man who—" Eleanor held up a hand. "Stop." The entire room had gone quiet, but her voice was steady now. "You don't get to shame me anymore. I let this illness take over my body, but you let it take over my spirit, and I'm done letting anyone make me feel unworthy because of how I look." Allison stood frozen, mouth slightly open. Lily's eyes welled up. "You're stronger than all of us, Elle." Eleanor turned to Samuel, who had said nothing, just watched her with awe in his dark eyes. "You still want to go for that walk by the bayou tonight?" she asked him. He smiled. "Always." Without another word, Eleanor walked out, Samuel beside her. She didn't look back. Later that evening, they sat again by the water where it all began. The sun painted gold across the rippling surface. Fireflies blinked lazily through the warm air. Eleanor leaned into Samuel's side, his scarred hand brushing hers. "She came all this way just to make sure I still hated myself," Eleanor whispered. He exhaled slowly. and you didn't give her what she wanted. I almost did. But you didn't. That's the part that matters. She turned to look at him. Do you ever wish you could go back, to before the fire? Samuel was quiet for a moment. There was a time I would have said yes without hesitation, but now, he looked at her, really looked. If I went back, I wouldn't be sitting here with you. Eleanor felt a lump rise in her throat. I didn't think anyone could ever love me again, she said. Not like this. Not after everything. Samuel leaned in closer. Then let me be the first to prove you wrong. He pulled something from his pocket. Small, simple, made of brushed steel. Not a ring, a key. To my place, he said, smiling shyly, if you ever want it. Eleanor stared at it, stunned. You're asking me to move in with you? I'm asking you to be where you feel safe, he said. Wherever that is. I just hope it's with me. Tears shimmered in her blue eyes. Samuel. She threw her arms around him, laughing and crying at once. Yes, 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 yes. As the fireflies danced around them and the gentle lapping of the water echoed in the background, the girl once called too much and the man once called ruined held each other like they were everything the other had been waiting for. 6 months later, the town of Lake Charles was no longer a landscape of shattered homes and downed trees. Flowers bloomed again in front yards. Power lines stood tall, roofs glistened with new shingles, and the laughter of children echoed through neighborhoods once drowned in silence. Eleanor stood in front of a small white community center with a fresh coat of paint and a hand-carved wooden sign that read, The Rebuild Hope Project, founded by Eleanor Winters and Samuel Hart. Inside, families gathered every afternoon for warm meals, counseling, support groups, and career training. It had become a place not only to heal the town, but to rebuild dignity. Eleanor had found her calling not in boardrooms or wedding plans, but in service, in showing others, especially women who felt less than, that they were never alone. She'd lost weight, yes, but not in the way society always demanded. She had lost the weight of shame, of expectation, of pretending. One afternoon, she stepped outside with 2 cups of coffee. Samuel was repairing a broken swing in the tiny playground behind the building. His sleeves were rolled up, revealing the scars he never covered anymore. You always make things better, she said, handing him a cup. He smiled and took a sip. Only because I've got the best partner. He leaned over and kissed her forehead. Eleanor closed her eyes, letting the wind carry away the last lingering pieces of her old self. A car pulled into the gravel lot behind them. Eleanor turned and froze. It was her father. Michael Winters stepped out, awkward in his expensive dress shoes, shielding his eyes from the sun. For a long moment, he just looked at her. No scowl, no judgment. Just quiet remorse. Samuel stood protectively beside Eleanor, but she took a deep breath and stepped forward. Dad, she said, her voice steady. I read about the shelter in the Times, he said. Saw the photos. He paused, looking around. I never knew you were capable of all this. Eleanor's eyebrows raised slightly. Because you never looked beyond my reflection. Michael sighed. I know. I judged you. I was embarrassed, not by your weight, but by what it forced me to face in myself. My pride, my fear of what people would say. She blinked, surprised by the honesty. I don't expect forgiveness today, he continued. But your mother's been watching your videos, quietly, at night. She cried last week. She saw you holding that little girl in the wheelchair, the one you helped get into school. She said, That's our Eleanor. Something trembled in Eleanor's chest. I miss my daughter, Michael said, voice cracking. You never lost her, she whispered. You just stopped looking. They stood there for a long moment, the silence heavy with old wounds and the start of healing. Eventually, She stepped back and motioned toward the building. "You want to come in? Help serve lunch?" He looked surprised, then nodded. "I'd like that." Samuel watched from the distance, his heart swelling. He had seen Eleanor fight battles no one should face alone, and now, at last, she was no longer alone. Months turned to a year. Their story was picked up by national media. The firefighter and the girl with the green nails became a symbol of resilience. Schools invited them to speak. Support flooded in from around the country. A documentary crew even asked to film their journey. Eleanor hesitated, but finally agreed. Not for fame, but for every girl staring at her reflection, wondering if she was too broken to be loved. One morning, Samuel took her hand as they walked down the familiar bayou trail, the one where it all began. The trees were green again. The water shimmered. He stopped and turned to her. "I thought about buying a ring," he said. She blinked. "You thought?" "I did," he grinned. "But then I realized we already have the kind of commitment most people only dream of." He knelt, not with a ring, but with a vow. "Wherever you go, Eleanor Winters, I'll go. Whoever you become, I'll love. You pulled me from fire, and I'll never stop holding your hand." Tears streamed down her face as she nodded, dropping to her knees beside him. "You saved me too," she whispered. "Every scar, every pound, every piece of me. I've never felt more beautiful than I do when I'm with you." They held each other as the sun broke through the clouds above. Not a fairy tale, not a fantasy, but a love built from ashes, stronger than shame, deeper than skin, and endlessly real. Sometimes life doesn't break us to end us. It breaks us to rebuild us. Eleanor's journey began with heartbreak, rejection, and a body that seemed to betray her. She lost everything she thought defined her: her appearance, her family's approval, even the man she planned to marry. But through that storm, she found something far greater: her worth, her courage, and a love that saw through every scar and every insecurity. And Samuel, a man once marked by fire, found healing not through hiding, but by showing up with his wounds, unashamed and open. Together, they proved that true beauty doesn't fade. It transforms. It lives in kindness, resilience, and the choice to love when it's hardest. The lesson here is powerful. Your value isn't measured by your size, your scars, or the approval of others. It's measured by how you rise, by how you love, by how you live. If you're struggling right now, just remember, sometimes the most beautiful stories are born from the ashes. Thank you so much for watching and staying with us through this emotional journey. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. There's so much more ahead, and we can't wait to walk this path with you. Stay strong, stay kind, and never forget, you are enough.